Hi, my name is Nicole Gomez, and I have a Film 1010 project about Tim Burton's film Edward Scissorhands and how Tim Burton uses the element of mise-en-scène in order to convey the theme of conformity versus nonconformity. Enjoy! Directed by Tim Burton, Edward Scissorhands, made in 1990, is an American romantic fantasy film set in middle-class suburbia. In the movie, Burton tells us a story about an elderly inventor who creates an artificial man named Edward in his mansion atop a hill near a small town. But the inventor dies before completing his creation, leaving him isolated and shut out from the rest of the world. But when an Avon lady finds him, she takes him to live with her family in the colorful suburban area. Throughout the film, Edward is longing to be accepted by the outside world. When Ted Burton created the film Edward Scissorhands, he intended to mock the faults in society. Burton used techniques that allowed the story to unfold and develop itself by giving much importance to the mise-en-scène. The mise-en-scène, everything in front of the camera, incorporates important elements that aid in the relevance and escalation of a story within a film. These particular elements of mise-en-scène can help convey the genre, develop the characters, and carries the emotional weight of the theme of the story. Edward Scissorhands attempts to address the theme of how people feel the obligation for conformity. Tim Burton shows throughout his work that he is a nonconformist. In the film Edward Scissorhands, Tim Burton used the film elements of mise-en-scène of setting and costume in order to illustrate the themes of conformity versus nonconformity. In the film Edward Scissorhands, Tim Burton uses setting to illustrate conformity versus nonconformity. The setting helps create the atmosphere and connotations of feelings or meanings that occur in a film. The dark mansion on the hill decorated with monstrous stone carvings is contrasted with the peaceful, perfect town. All the houses are built neatly in a row, the fences carefully lined up, and even the neighbors are in routine. This conveys the contrast between nonconformity versus conformity. According to Julie Clarke, by placing Edward in a Gothic mansion replete with winding staircase and decorative interiors, Burton reminds us that historically, those with anomalous bodily forms were isolated from the rest of the community and institutions. She also describes how the elaborate, ornate manor appears to provide a marked contrast to the homogeneous contemporary architecture of the suburban town and the reality of everyday life. The colors used also show the differences in the two settings. Edward's castle setting is black and white, representing nonconformity, while the pastel uniform homes with neat yards represent the conforming community. While Burton plays with the colors and alters their normal interpretations of good and evil, he also brings new meaning to their counterparting pastels. This, along with Edward's mansion, a dark place riddled with cobwebs and falling apart, so far away from society, juxtaposes fantastically with the bright and vibrant colors of the town, the houses, and the clothes and outfits of the townspeople. The clothes and the costumes used also help Burton illustrate conformity versus nonconformity. According to the book, The Film Experience, costumes are the clothing and related accessories worn by a character that defines the character and contribute to the visual impression and design of the film overall. The costumes draw out important parts of the character's personality. The costumes also help understand and develop the character of the story. The characters in Edward Scissorhands are all stereotypes of humankind. The women in this movie are portrayed as typical desperate housewives. They do the cooking, cleaning, and have cups of coffee at each other's houses and do nothing out of the ordinary. The men work 9-to-5 jobs, and then they sit down and have dinner with their family. These are examples of stereotypes of common suburbia in the 1950s. This was the idea of living the American dream. However, none of this actually occurs in the real world. Women aren't all stay-at-home moms, and not all men have a job or a family. This is carefully and noticeably communicated by Burton through his costumes used in Edward Scissorhands. A notable costume that helps convey the contrast between conformity versus nonconformity would be in the ice dance scene. The white dress Kim wears during the ice dance symbolizes the innocence and purity of her character. For Edward, however, his initial costume is completely black leather. decorated with metal studs and rings. His hair is jet black and very messy, and his face is pale white. Russell Potter views the fabricated body, covered with stars, as an erotic feast as well as a terror of flesh. Potter states that Edward's facial scars are self-inflicted, accidental, and yet Peg, the Avon lady, spends the better part of Edward's suburban sojourn trying to find the particular admixture of cosmetics which will conceal them. She then gives him clothes to wear, which, although do not seem to break his theme of darkness and dullness, do still symbolize his inclusion and belonging in their society. This shows how life in suburbia attempts to transform the nonconform to conform by attempting to alter the costume to something that would be viewed as normal. Overall, emphasizing the setting and costumes in the film Edward Scissorhands helps the mise-en-scène be more definable for viewers. With the assistance of oversized architecture, familiar colors, and subliminal undertones, Burton was able to develop a charismatic tale of an outsider's view on a simplistic yet confused and altered society. Burton ultimately brought out the dark and bizarre emotions in his characters through the mise-en-scène. His use of exaggeration of reality in his work helped to satirize society. It presented viewers with a cynical view of mankind. It provided all spectators with a negative view on how people live, work, and communicate. In the end, the setting and costumes conveyed the theme of conformity versus nonconformity in Tim Burton's film Edward Scissorhands. And like how Russell Potter argues, Edward's secrets of no amount of how much makeup will cover our scars and the libido has everything to do with society at large are, in the end, too much to bear.